Good morning, everybody. Excited to be here and excited to actually talk about retail innovation and transformation. My name is Melissa Murphy. I am an adjunct at Tepper. I teach all things brand, marketing, innovation, new product development. And what I enjoy the most is actually teaching the CSL capstone course that we do with our students. And we're also doing some executive education now. So those are the things that excite me. But my previous career spent in the CPG category and on the agency side of the business, I have come to love all things consumer facing. So whether that be healthcare or products and services, that's what gets me excited in the morning. And part of that reason is I think it sometimes gets a bad rap, but guess what? At the end of the day, we are always going to be buying and selling products. The way we do it might be different. We might be able to be more efficient about it. We might be able to customize or personalize more, but we're always going to be doing that. So I always think there's an important need for that and a really important part about what we do. You've had a chance to meet Mike already. I'd like to introduce you to our two other panelists. First up is Ross Neumann, who is head of partnerships with Lowe's Interactive Labs, and Richard Williamson, who is the distinguished data scientist for Walmart Global Tech. What I'd like to ask both Ross and Richard to do is just tell us a little bit about yourself. We've heard from Mike, but Ross, do you want to go next and share some things you're working on?
For sure. Okay, that's on. So my name's Ross, lead partnership development for the innovation labs at Lowe's Home Improvement. And really our remit within Lowe's is to leverage emerging technology to open up new trajectories for Lowe's business. So we do that across a bunch of different emerging technology verticals, but just to name a few, a lot of work on 3D content and visualization experiences, so whether that be in augmented reality or virtual reality. A lot of work around building digital twins, both for our stores as well as our homes. And in the case of the store context, also some work on in-store robotics. And lastly, a lot of work around seeing if we can't leverage AI as a way to democratize different classes of home improvement expertise. And sort of thematically across all those things, what we're really hitting at is this belief that we think that the physical and digital sides of retail are really going to start fusing much more seamlessly together to create sort of a third kind of retail that sort of borrows the best of both of those worlds. And so, yeah, just happy to be here and have the conversation.
Great, thanks.
Hi, great to meet everyone. I'm Richard Williamson with Walmart, part of the Global Technology Division. Within there, have responsibility for the end-to-end AI team and lead the machine learning engineering part of that. I've been with the company over 22 years. Had a chance to leave for a startup called Silicon Valley Data Science for about 5 years. Anybody that's not experienced both the corporate world and the startup world, I would highly recommend that. You definitely learn lots of different things from each. I just have a passion for taking AI and applying that to solutions across retail. And I take the broad look at AI to also include operations research. We do lots of very scalable optimization across our chain as well.
Great. So one of the things we know about technology in the retail environment is that not only does it impact our sort of behind the scenes, whether it's inventory planning, looking at how we are supplying our products, looking at how we are transferring from different countries, but we also know that an important part of that is how we are reaching and interacting with the consumer or the customer, which is my special area. What I'd like to ask everyone to talk a little bit about, though, is, and I think, Mike, you alluded to this in your talk, is I think there's so much focus on e-commerce, but I actually want to start us off talking about in-store and the in-store experience, because I think that's actually where we're seeing technology through the pandemic thrusting us into it, but really where we're seeing some great technological tests, but also work that's being done there. So if we could start with just understanding retail from the in-store perspective, that would be great. Mike, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Like I said, I did touch on that. I do think we have to recognize that physical stores are going to be here for a really long time. They're going to be the place where most transactions happen for a really long time. I read an article in 2021, just last year, that showed the trajectory over the past couple of years, and it's going to continue in 2023, and no, it's already gone down. It's already gone back to not quite where it was before the pandemic, but it's starting to go back to normal. E-commerce is a slow growth thing because there's a lot of reasons we still want to go to the store. We like to browse the shelves. We want to discover new products we didn't know about. Even if you don't consciously go there to do that, you do that, right? You buy things at checkout. You walk all the way to the back of the store to get the milk, and you pass things along the way that if you don't buy them then, they're in your brain now. And generally, that's good for consumers. We actually learn from that. We benefit from that. I do think, though, that there's so many more opportunities to connect those dots, that third type of commerce idea, that we can be much more intentional about this. I know that we work with a lot of merchants, and for the longest time, their e-commerce teams were separate from the rest of their organization. Oftentimes almost competitive with the rest of the organization, instead of working to figure out how these two things fit so much better. If I go to a website and search for something, wouldn't it be great if the store remembered that I searched for that I was in the market for that dishwasher, so that when I went there, they're like, oh, I know what dishwasher you're looking for. And of course, there's lots of privacy concerns there that we have to work through. But there's ways to do it, and consumers will benefit from that. And I think that's where, there's just so many untapped opportunities there to make that more seamless, to think of the purchase process as a journey that happens across contexts and across time. And that's, I don't know, I'm excited about that. And also, everybody in the store has a phone with a camera. Like, why aren't we taking better advantage of that, right? Everybody is taking pictures of products they might buy. Why aren't we taking better advantage of that? I think there's so much more that we're just scratching the surface today.
Yeah, and I think, like, over on the Lowe's side, certainly the in-store experience, even relative to other retailers, is always going to be such a critical aspect of just the customer experience we provide, because the products that we sell, kitchens, bathrooms, vanities, refrigerators, like, these are purchases that require a high level of confidence from customers in order to feel conviction to be able to actually go through and purchase. And I think that, for retail writ large, but also, Lowe's specifically, one of the things that I think has held back that evolution of that in-store experience is that our stores are full of information, but very, very little of it is actually digitized. And when you don't have a platform to build these experiences on top of, it gets very, very hard and very frictionful anytime you try to go do something. And so our belief on the Lowe's side is the first order problem we've got to solve is we've got to make our stores more digital and all the information inside of it. And so that's why over the last couple of years, we've been working on building basically digital twins from the data up of our stores. And so when I say data up, what I'm meaning there is that, yes, of course, we're taking a 3D scan of the store to be able to get an idea of the space. But what we're also doing is we're taking all the financial data for the product inside there, the planogram information, all of our inventory information, and flowing that and unifying that in a way that honestly, with data streams that haven't been put together before within Lowe's, in a way that gets you a true digital replica of what the store looks like. And now once all that stuff is organized, now you can actually start building these applications on top of it with much less incremental investment needed, because all that data has been organized and unified into a single place. And so a couple weeks back, we announced at NVIDIA GTC that we had done this for, I believe, 2 of our stores. And it's something that we're really excited about, because what this lets you do is build different experiences for associates. So for example, one experience we've built is something we call augmented associate, and it allows them with a Magic Leap headset to be able to see that digital twin overlaid on top of the store. So if I'm an associate who's doing inventory, I can very quickly see, oh, that product doesn't belong there, it actually belongs up here. Or, oh, interestingly, this product is seeing unusually high sales velocity, but appears to be in a place that's not terribly visible for customers. And so we believe that this is going to unlock just a lot of productivity improvements for Lowe's specifically, but also new experiences for customers in a bunch of different ways.
Richard, do you want to add?
Yes, so Walmart obviously still believes there's a huge desire for customers to go to stores. We have over 4,600 stores in the U.S. alone, as well as 600 Sam's Clubs. Within those facilities, our goal is to make the customer journey as frictionless as possible. So me, for one, I love using online grocery pickup. It makes it much easier for my wife to go shop and then me to go pick up the groceries. I just signed up for Walmart Plus, which also comes with free delivery now. So that is even a further step to give our customers the time back in their day to do the more critical part of their life of raising children or working. So that being said, our group heavily supports the assortment optimization part of our business. So we help our merchants decide which items should be placed within each store. Historically, this has been done at a store group level. AI and optimization technologies has enabled us to be very store specific with that now. Not much over a year ago, we were using a solution that took days to generate these planograms across the stores. About last December, I joined this team and was able to improve the response time for those models by leveraging our cloud partners like Google and Microsoft to take that process down to about 5 to 10 minutes to generate what planograms should be across all of our stores. And what that enables is the merchants can now think in real time, right? It's not like, well, I have to wait a day or two to come back and see these batch results. So that's the direction we're moving. And I'll quickly comment on the scaling part of that because I love to talk about technology. So for that, we will actually scale up to over 200,000 cores to be able to run some of these models. And we couldn't be able to do that without cloud. So.
Good. I want to touch on something that Mike had mentioned that I think is really important both as the consumer and on the corporate or company side of it, and that notion of that seamless experience. I think that's a really important topic, and I think that's an area where technology and innovation can really drive a better experience by sort of combining those. I wondered if Ross or Richard, you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, I think that, one thing that you sort of understand about home improvement retail when you work in it long enough is like really our job as a retailer. Ooh, getting some good mood lighting here. This is exciting.
Are we
what I'm about to say is not
already?
nearly
Yep.
exciting enough to justify that. So one of the things you realize is that as a home improvement retailer, your job is solving information problems for customers, right? So when a customer comes into the store and they basically say, hey, I'm interested in buying flooring, and I actually happen to know exactly what flooring I want, and I also have money that I'm ready to give you. At a home improvement retailer, you run into this problem where if the customer doesn't know what the square footage of their living room is, we literally cannot complete the transaction. We have to send them back to their home, schedule a detail, someone will come out, measure their floor, and then we can actually deliver an effective quote and estimate. And from a customer perspective, that's a really challenging experience to go through, right? You've got high intent to purchase, you're ready to purchase, you're ready to go, but yet we still have this information gap. And so one of the ways that we've worked to solve this is with a product that we call Measure Your Space. And it works with any iOS device that's LiDAR equipped. And so when you're within the Lowe's iOS app and you land on a flooring SKU, what this allows you to do is actually fire up the LiDAR on your phone and quickly and easily grab a 3D mesh of your entire space, which will give you the relevant square footage dimensions you need to actually purchase that bit of flooring. And so what I think is interesting about that is it's solving a very clear customer pain point because it just is a very disjointed sales process when you have to actually schedule that detail. But it's also starting to hint at, again, that sort of fusion of these worlds, because in a weird way, when you do that experience actually at home, you're sort of bringing a bit of the Lowe's store with you into the home. And I think that we think a lot about how can you use technology to actually transform the customer's home, which is the context that ultimately anything they would ever buy from us would exist in, and make that more Lowe's-like as if they were at the store and being able to tap into the expertise they need.
Yeah, I'll just add a quick comment there. So, had a chance to work with Sam's Club for a couple of years. If y'all haven't had a chance to visit our clubs and use the Scan and Go app now, I continually use that and walk by the checkout lines and see people waiting 5 or 10 minutes, and I just walk through the door, and show my phone to the greeter. So that's definitely an aspect that I enjoy in the store now.
Great. So some of the trends that we've all talked about, and we've heard a little bit about this morning, are related to personalization, gamification, customization. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about that, because again, it speaks to how we're enabling customers to engage more and more fully with us. So talk about some of those trends and how they are driving some of your choices that you're making. Mike, do you want to go?
Sure. I do think, again, personalization is one of those things we've talked about for years, but I don't think we've really nailed it. And there's some good reasons. I mean, if you think of Google, hopefully everybody knows that we're trying really, really hard to ensure the privacy of our users, because everybody assumes we're not. So, it's important for us as a company to make that our top priority. So any personalization that we do has to be extremely transparent, right? We have to make sure that you know we're doing this, that you chose this, that you said, yeah, please do a better job of helping me find the right products for me. But we're going to do more and more of that, and we're seeing some early benefits of that. When you go search for something, if you buy all the time from Walmart and you come to Google and search for something and we keep showing you other stores, it's going to be frustrating because you know that the product is probably sold at Walmart. Why aren't we showing this? And so learning your preferences like that with you as a partner, I think will start to change that. That's something we're going to spend a lot more time on going forward, because the early experiments we've done have shown two great things. One, the quality of the results are significantly better, and user happiness has gone up. The user happiness is the number one metric we use for any launch that we do. And so making sure that users are satisfied with their purchase or satisfied with the result that we showed them is the most important thing. And personalization is the biggest lever we have. It's just the trickiest one to push on. So that's a big push. One of the other things that is exciting, I think, is some of the AR capabilities. So again, these have been around for a while. I think they're really now just starting to click. Things like what Lowe's is doing that gives you a sense, allows you to see things in your space. I've used a ton of these. They're really handy to save you those trips back and forth. We launched a lipstick try-on, so you can see how a particular shade of lipstick looks on you and your skin tone before you make a purchase. These things are starting to help with that fit problem I talked about in maybe not in the apparel try-on space, but in things like makeup or furniture. More and more companies are able to see, you can see how the couch will look in your apartment. I think these are going to be game changers because they'll make you more confident in your purchase. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, is confidence in your purchase. This is the right product for me. This is the right seller to buy from. This is the right brand for me. We're always trying to build that confidence. And one of the ways to do that is that customization, that personalization, again, with your partnership as a user, making sure that you're in the driver's seat for that.
And to hit on personalization in a slightly different angle, one of the areas that we've been really excited about, just even over the last couple months, is generative AI. So typically when you think about personalization, you're thinking more along the lines of, you're just sort of, me as the retailer, I just know what you want, right? What I think is really exciting about generative AI, it actually helps the customer have access to a tool that lets them substantiate the thing that they actually want, which sometimes even a retailer isn't going to be able to define. So if you're thinking about, kitchen and bath, a lot of people will have a picture in their head about the thing that they generally want. They might have some Pinterest boards, they might, put together a mood board on their own, but still there's a weird gestalt of what they want that's hard for people to describe. And that's what interior designers are really great at, right? They're great at hearing what someone's looking for and actually being able to translate that. What's really exciting about things like Stable Diffusion and certainly what OpenAI is doing with DALL-E is it's helping potentially customers to actually verbalize what they're looking for and actually see it substantiated in some shape or form, right? We're very close to a place now where you could have someone just verbally describe the kitchen they're looking for and have it produced and created by these models, which is just crazy. It's almost like a kind of like reality creation, just on the fly. And so I think that from like a home improvement retail perspective, using these as tools to actually help customers tell us what they want, even before we're actually just looking at the data to try to personalize something for them, I think is something that's a really, really valuable function of AI, and really helps you do an incredibly intimate kind of personalization at scale in a way that just would not be possible were it not for these models.
Yep, and I'll add to that from the merchandising perspective. So I typically think of personalization at the store level. The biggest challenge I see in this space is merchandising is both an art and science. So taking the things that our merchants have learned, over 10 or 20 years of buying the right product and plugging that into the algorithms. I think there's tons of entrepreneurial minds in this room that can help with those problems. On another front, I was just talking with Daniela last evening, who is the CEO of a startup around sustainability. I was reminded of the CEO at my startup. She had the same vision to, start changing how data is used for sustainability. Kloopify, I believe, was the name of her company. So just want to make sure everybody's thinking outside the box as how we solve these problems.
So one of the things that we read a lot about when we look into retail and technologies is sort of the things that happen behind the scenes, whether that's demand planning, inventory planning, assortment. Let's talk a little bit about what happens behind the scenes, because I think that's a case where companies are really looking at technology to not only become more efficient and speak to the customer's needs, but also probably to save some money as well. So talk a little bit about what you're doing behind the scenes to use technology to support the business.
I can start on that.
Yeah, I think I'd like to start one to you.
Start with that.
Yeah, so I'll talk about another effort we have going on. So forecasting has always been a huge piece of the retail business. Classically, we have forecasted stores at multiple different levels, whether that be financial, operational, replenishment, as well as digital has their own forecasts. My team's part of a new innovation front where we're looking at a project called One Demand, where we unify those into basically a hex grid across the country. Uber has a hex grid that is used well for other things, and my VP comes from Uber, so why not use something that's worked well for other quickly scaled products. But anyway, that allows us to now look at a customer independent of whether they're shopping online or within the store. And the biggest aspect of that will be to get the great collaboration from the CPGs. It was fun watching the Heinz presentation earlier as to how we do that across the supply chain.
Yeah, and touch a little bit on what we do. So I don't get too involved in the deep back of house side of how we use data to help with merchandising, demand planning, supply chain. The one aspect that we do touch is along the work that we've done around in-store robotics. The reality is, when you're trying to do any kind of inventory planning, inventory counting, it's a very challenging task for humans. It requires an incredible amount of focus for a task that can sometimes be felt as tedious, but still is incredibly critical, right, to the functioning of a retail store, because that information is the thing that determines whether something's in stock or out of stock, which is a critical experience for customers. And so, one of the areas we've done a lot of experimentation over historically is using terrestrial robotics as a way to be able to help machines do what they do well, right? And leverage computer vision as a way to be able to scale reliably inventory counting across the entire network of stores that we have. And so I think that certainly is something that we kind of bucketize underneath our digital twin work, because getting that kind of visibility and that data in a real time, or at least once a day way, is just super important to whole aspects of the business. And we're pretty excited about how that's going to just unlock a lot of opportunity in a bunch of different ways. So,
I can speak from my experience stocking shelves when I was in high school at Farmore. We had, carts full of go-backs, the things that were in the wrong place and needed to go back or left at the register and go back. They're understating how hard it is to know how many items you have in the store. We've worked with our local shopping. We've worked with all the big chains and retailers trying to get as fresh as possible the information so we could tell you confidently that if you drive to Walmart or Lowe's right now, they'll have 4 of these on the shelf. It's gotten amazingly better over time, but it is a super hard problem. You have shoplifters, you have things in the wrong place, you have things sitting at the register, things on carts, right? It's a really hard problem to get right, and it's a place where prediction, I think, becomes a huge lever for opportunity. There's one thing that I can think of, because I'm mostly also working on the front end. And my team's responsible for the data behind the scenes. So we're always pouring through the data, again, with our data science partners. And one of the things we started to provide to the brands, because we're trying to figure out how can the brands leverage Google better, is to give them better information on the performance of their products across all channels via Google, right? So if you're selling hardware, if you're selling tools online, you're selling through Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart and Target, but you're also selling through lots of smaller mom and pop shops and local shops. We know where people, like what traffic we're getting from all those places. We can give them sort of this cross-section of where people are searching and what sites they're going to. And so looking to unlock more of that information to help them predict which channels to invest in more, which channels to advertise with and promote more. So that's one of the ways that you can that exhaust data can be used in a whole different way, and an opportunity for anybody who's sitting on these mounds of data.
I just wanted to add a quick comment to that. So Mike and I just met today, but we've had a good relationship corporately from Walmart and Google. Since he mentioned inventory, about 3 years ago, I had a chance to start building an hourly inventory table for all of our billion plus store item combinations, and had tracked that for about a year and a half. It was about 30 trillion rows of data by the time I moved on to another team. I was sitting in a product meeting with Google over BigQuery, a roadmap meeting. So I took that data, loaded it into BigQuery, made it, duplicated it to about 100 trillion rows, all in about an hour. So that's why we, heavily leverage our vendor partners. So.
One topic that came up this morning as well that I want to touch on is sustainability and how and where and why we are thinking about that, both from the consumer standpoint, but from the corporate perspective as well. So can you talk a little bit about how you're using technology to improve and aid in the sustainability process?
I just really briefly, one of the things, one of the biggest challenges in the sustainability space is greenwashing. Is this idea that anybody can claim to be sustainable, you can say green. There's really not a whole lot of regulation of that. And by regulation, I don't necessarily mean laws, although also not laws, but standards bodies are starting to form, but consumers don't yet really know what they are. So it's a challenging space to cut through the noise and really give consumers confidence. I talked about confidence before. We're working really hard to figure out what are the trusted sources of sustainability designations. What are the types of sustainability? Are you using sustainable materials? Are you using organic materials? Is this product made from recycled? Is it recyclable? There's lots of different ways to be sustainable. Sustainable itself, the word, we've done a lot of studies. Most users will tell you they don't have no idea what that means. And if they saw something listed as sustainable, that wouldn't motivate them to buy. They need much more precision, much more specificity in a definition of what you mean. And so we've done a ton of UX research, we're leaning on a design team to figure out what's the right way to do this. So again, you'll see, I mentioned the pre-owned tag, there's a little green leaf next to it, which we've tested a lot. That seems to be the one that people intuitively understand, but we still have an explanation what it means because we want to be transparent about it. I think on the shopping tab on Google, you will show things like, hey, if you're searching for water heaters, consider one of these more energy efficient ones. So we're trying to nudge people towards that without sort of overriding the overall experience and having users lose control. So little things like that where we're, the UI affordances, the ranking nudges that are just trying to make sustainability more of the default instead of the weird outlier, which I think it still is today.
Yeah, and I think on the Lowe store, similarly to the position, where Google is, I mean, obviously there's the element of sustainability that Lowe's has control over, so that's our stores, our workforce, and all of that, and the footprint that goes into that. But really, I think that the largest impact we end up having, right, is the products that we sell to customers who ultimately put them in their homes. And I think that a huge area of opportunity going forward, and I think it will start showing up more and more, is making the information around the sustainability impacts that different products have much more visible to end customers. I think is going to start. That's when I think people are going to start making different choices in interesting ways, whether it be with water heaters. I've had a fascinating conversation with a Carnegie Mellon professor who knows everything about lighting and windows and how that affects energy efficiency within a home. But all that is super opaque to customers. Even if you get a sustainability tag, you don't really know the actual impact or that your choice in buying that product versus something else is going to make. And I think over the next few years, there's going to be a lot more of that information becoming much more transparent to homeowners in ways that are going to be able to help incentivize them make probably even better economic choices, right, for their home, where it helps them with reduced energy usage and whatnot. And so I think it's a really interesting problem to solve. And I think that, certainly Google, as well as us, we certainly have a big role to play in helping shape people's understanding of how to make better, more sustainable choices. So.
Yeah, Walmart launched Project Gigaton, so that's been a huge effort in helping rebrand packaging, cut down on waste from that process, and there's lots of other efforts underneath that umbrella. Definitely, given we have a room of entrepreneurs, my pet peeve lately has been, why do we ship these bottles of water around the country when some of them come from Atlanta bottling plants? So I would challenge all the entrepreneurs in the room to how we cut down on that waste.
All right. I know we're trying to catch up a little bit on time, but I'd really be remiss if I didn't give the audience a chance to ask you some questions as well. I know we've heard some of the positives and some of the concerns, but I'd really like to hear from some others and ask some questions from it. So anyone in the room? Okay.
Now, as Mike said, given that retail looks like it's here to stay, despite the internet, and what CMU has been or is still doing, to what extent are Lowe's and Walmart considering robotization of shelving, what can be done from 11 p.m. to 6 or 7 a.m., and replace this concept of during the day, these big carts with supplies all over the place and impeding the movement of the shoppers? What are Lowe's and Walmart, what do you have on the drawing boards, if you're permitted to reveal it?
So I could take a crack at it. So I think when it comes to, I guess, what you're talking about, which is sort of full store automation, right? So it's basically saying take the entire infrastructure of the store and make it operate more like a straight up Amazon warehouse to some degree. The challenge with that is you ultimately have to reckon with the fact that the stores are both for people and then staffed by people at the end of the day. And I think that the economics that go into, for across 1,700 stores, creating a very, very complicated and very expensive fully automated set of racks is something where I don't know if the economics are fully there yet to support that kind of full digitization and transformation. I think the problem ends up being that, if you're in a warehouse setting, right, you can design the entire warehouse around purely one task, which ends up being mostly like pick and place, right? So someone's grabbing something from one place, putting it into another, and then sending it to some other, someplace else. In the case of a retail store, the customer experience sort of puts some constraints around being able to design a system like that. And so I would I would say that if it does happen, it's probably still pretty far out from where we are right now. But I think, again, that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that stores aren't going to move more toward that direction. I just don't think it's going to be an entire wholesale, we don't have to do stocking anymore sort of situation. I think it's going to be something where it's just like a much slower creep. And maybe we end up at that, that end state eventually. But I would bet it's probably still a bit further out.
So that's not my specific area, but I have worked with some of those teams in the past. I know we have some like robotic floor cleaners in the space, which it's very clever. They're basically augmented by the associates. Will train the car to go around the floor to clean things. So typically, I look at those things as how we can augment the associates. I believe there's also an effort where we have tugs that basically will pull a cart along where an associate then can put the product on the shelves. So typically, in a very hard to control environment like a Walmart store, you typically need human involvement with that still.
Time for one more question? Thanks, Sean.
Thank you for presenting so many industry insights. I believe a lot of the entrepreneurs in today's meeting all have some kind of useful technology in hand, but still struggles to reach the successful story. Where do you think the largest misconception from the entrepreneurs, especially from university spin-outs, typically make?
I can start with that one. So I started reading a book called The Voltage Effect a few months ago, and right after that, I believe we hired our chief economist, John List. So he's came from Uber and Lyft to do lots of how to scale ideas. I think that's one of our biggest challenges, right? So a lot of ideas start out well, but if they're not set up for success long term, I think that's definitely advise people to think through, how to scale your ideas, because technology scaling is much different than business model scaling.
Yeah, and I think to take sort of misconception, literally, I think that when startups or founders sort of are, just confused as to why, they're not getting traction with large companies or why, conversations might peter out. More often than not, it has very little to do, right, with the individual startup or founder. It just has to do with the fact that bandwidth is a constant going concern for large companies, even on the innovation side, it is. And I think that what that suggests to me, and this is, I feel like startup 101, but I think it just reinforces the concept is you really want to be providing, a painkiller, not a vitamin. Meaning you need to, your solution, what you're building, you need to really, really try to figure out either A, how can I make my product solving such a near and present problem that people just will immediately reprioritize their entire set of work to be able to go leverage it, or alternatively, think really deeply about who is the customer that this is a painkiller for, right? Like, instead of just taking a very wide swath and looking at, every retailer, is there a specific retailer, right, where your particular product is absolutely perfect for, and really, really going after that market, and then eventually growing over time. I think a lot of times there's a little bit too much of a scattershot approach, when it comes to either, sales or business development for startups, where you really just need to start from the premise of, I need to build a product that someone's going to love, and I need to find that person. And then once you develop that relationship, build out, as opposed to immediately trying to worry yourself with, how do I find 10 customers? Because that's just probably too much, to be able to handle on the outset. So yeah, that's what I would say on that side of things.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Richard and Ross and Mike for their time today and sharing their thoughts. And we'll all be around to answer some more questions, keep the day moving a little bit. So thank you very much.